Wings with Wings Productions, with the support of Whimsical Productions and Collected Sounds, presents the Skylark Bell Fantôme Friday. I'm your host, Melissa Oliveri. On the last Friday of each month, we pause our reading of Meadow Lane and the Skylark Bell, and instead cover a real-life supernatural, or at the very least, unusual and unexplained experience. In today's episode, we will recount the troubling story of the open house. Be sure to stay tuned at the end of the episode for an original song by Canel inspired by this story. So get settled in, grab a blanket, a warm drink, and let's get started. We had never met the neighbors in the house across the street. They seemed to keep to themselves. And a couple of years after we moved into our house, they put their house up for sale. They had already moved out by the time the house went up for sale, and my husband, who had only recently become a realtor, suggested we go take a look and connect with the agent selling the house. My parents were in town visiting from Canada and offered to watch our baby while we went across the street to view the home. The very quaint, modest house was painted a bright yellow and was surrounded by tasteful landscaping. We entered through the front door, which had some stained glass on it that created a rainbow on the hardwood floor of the entryway. A cheerful woman greeted us as we walked in. We introduced ourselves and started our tour. Because there were already people viewing the second floor, we decided to start with the basement. It was an unfinished basement, typical for the area, with nothing notable about it. We moved on to the main floor, which featured beautiful original wood trim and staging furniture to make it feel warm and cozy. By this time, the family who had been looking at the second floor was coming down the stairs and wrapping up their tour. We smiled as we passed them and headed up the creaky wood staircase. The second floor was also very typical for a century-old house, with a short landing that opened up to 3 bedrooms, which were empty of any furniture. The first bedroom was at the back of the house and had beautiful wood floors. As I walked into the bedroom that faced the front of the house, I was hit with an immediate, oppressive, panicked feeling. In trying to explain it to my husband later on, I described it as a change in atmosphere, similar to stepping from an air-conditioned store into oppressive, humid summer heat and humidity. That kind of a difference. The change in the air was that palpable. I could sense the energy of a woman spinning around the perimeter of the room at a high rate of speed, sobbing, screaming, fearful, irrational, completely panicked. I instantly began to feel unwell, dizzy and nauseous. The emotions were so overwhelming, I immediately stepped back out of the room into the hallway and sat down on a small antique wooden chair that had thankfully been left there. I explained to my husband what had just happened and took a moment to get my bearings. I still felt unwell and very emotional, not with my own emotions, but someone else's. Someone who wasn't there, at least physically. We decided we should leave and started walking back down the stairs to the main floor. The staircase was directly aligned with the front door, and I could see the beautiful sunny day outside as we were coming down. In my mind, the thought kept repeating, "I need to get out. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out." Of course, once we got back to the main floor, the real estate agent started to chat with us. The 2 minutes we spent making small talk were quite possibly the longest 2 minutes of my life. We eventually made it back to our house, but every time I looked out the front window, all I could do was stare at the second-story bedroom window of the yellow house across the street, where the woman was stuck in an endless loop of terror. A few weeks later, in chatting with one of our neighbors, my husband learned that many years prior, the house had belonged to people who had a volatile relationship. Whether that has any connection to my experience in the home, I'll never know. The house sold shortly after that incident, and was transformed in such a way that I barely remember how it looked before. You would never know it's the same house. We have become friends with the new homeowners. They are a lovely family. But I have not, and will not, set foot in that house ever again. Thank you so much for listening. Join me next week as we resume our adventures in Meadow Lane and the Skylark Bell. In last week's episode, Magpie had a terrible dream that involved Scarlet, Farfalla, the Skylark Bell, and Meadow Lane. Next week we read Chapter 12, Cold Pancakes, where Magpie visits Lucas and sees a photograph that stops her in her tracks. Don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss a thing. And now, an original song by Canal inspired by today's story. Here is Foreign Emotion. If you're still here, is this a cry for help or an echo of your personal hell? I hear your tears, you hear, but you've been gone for years. That feeling deep down in my